talk about exactly how these protests began and why they've escalated so quickly in the past few days.
Sure, and I think it's worth putting this in context. Iran is no stranger to protests. Protests have been omnipresent across Iran since its inception. However, these protests do feel different, Ouija. These protests started really by the bazaris, by the shopkeepers, who started protesting over rising prices and economic conditions.
It always comes down to that, man. It literally does not matter what happens in your country. The only line for like 90% of people is, can I afford bread? And if you can't afford bread, then we're going to riot.
Inflation is around 42%. The rial, the currency in Iran, has tanked. Purchasing power is horrible. These protests started, they quickly spread across the country. More folks are getting involved, and they have evolved into calling for political demands as well, including the overthrow of the 86-year-old supreme leader. At the same time, this feels different, not only because the bazaris are involved, who've typically been supporters of the regime, but also because Iran is just in a different position geopolitically than it was before. Syria has fallen. Iran was attacked by Israel and the United States. It is less strong than it was before, and the regime so far, relatively speaking, for now, is being less heavy-handed than they have been in the past.
For example, in 2022, when we saw probably one of the biggest widespread demonstrations in that country. Moving forward, what is the big difference in terms of the plate of options they have to curb these protesters compared to, 4 years ago?
Well, in terms of alleviating the underlying drivers of the protests, the economic conditions, their hands are tied. They are under crippling sanctions because of their nuclear program, support for proxies, and more. And the only pathway to lifting those sanctions is really some sort of nuclear deal with the Trump administration. So we'll see if this in any way does kickstart more of a dialogue with the United States.
Yeah, that'll fucking do it. Oh, I'm sure Trump would be more than willing to lift sanctions on Iran. All they'd have to do is agree to a nuclear program deal. Oh, I'm sure. Man, I really wish they were able to get that nuke.
United States, but what many of us are watching for is whether the regime does heed President Trump's warning that he will respond with lethal force to help protesters if Iran engages, if the regime engages in more violence or not. So the next couple of days are going to be incredibly instructive.
And the president has many times in recent days said that Iran would be, quote, hit hard if they continue to kill protesters. Can you talk about what
imagine that. Imagine living in a country where the government kills protesters.
Precedent is for U.S. intervention in a situation like this?
Well, I think it is.
Do they have ICBMs or just nukes? Neither. Also, ICBMs are higher up in the tech tree than nukes.
Notable that the regime has reason to believe that Trump means what he says. President Trump has struck Iran before. They know that he has both the intent and capability to launch operations within Iran. They know that Israel was able to assassinate senior officials within Iran. So they know that they could be at risk if they don't listen to what President Trump is saying. And I think that is likely giving them pause in terms of how they choose to respond to these protests all across the country.
And the president's last reaction and...
To be fair, the Iranian government kills protesters by the hundreds. To be fair, the Trump administration would be doing that right now if they thought they could get away with it. Like, the only thing keeping the Trump administration from just mass executing people is the fringes of liberal democracy holding this country together. It would be death camps if it wasn't for that.
Action on Iran is still very fresh.